In this video, we'll take a look at some of the management challenges that VMware vSphere can help us overcome. So first off, we have the management of varying hardware. And I've already mentioned this in the prior video, that if we're running all physical servers, we may have a variety of server types, right? A variety of different types of disks and all sorts of drivers and hardware that we need to manage. We also may have problems because of this with centralized control. And we also have compliance difficulties. So if we've got all of these different platforms running operating systems and we have basically a challenge with standardization, this can lead to a lot of compliance challenges in order to make sure that we are enforcing a consistent and controlled profile across our data center. And then we have the scalability of management tools as well. So as our physical data center grows, the management tools that we may have in place may not scale well with that physical data center. So how does vSphere solve this? Well, number one, we won't have that management of varying hardware anymore. Right? So with a physical data center, what we could potentially have is all of these physical servers, right? And maybe one we roll out as an HP, and another is an IBM, and another is a Dell. And over time, we're going to have all of this varying hardware, or even if they're the same manufacturer, they might have different guts, right? They might have different motherboards and different graphics solutions and network interface card types, right? And so if I've, let's say, deployed something like SQL on this physical server, and I want to now replace that physical server, how hard is it to migrate that workload to some different physical server? Right? Can I just back it up and restore my backup to that new physical server? Well, maybe. Or maybe my new physical server has a different network interface card type, and it's going to have different drivers. Right? And so managing that varying hardware can be a real challenge. Now, instead of having my SQL server on a physical machine, let's kind of think about it this way. Let's say that my SQL server runs inside of a virtual machine. Well, I've got a very limited set of hardware options, right? Maybe I've got a virtual NIC that Windows sees. That's a VMX 3. I've got a virtual SCSI controller. I've got virtual memory, virtual CPUs, and it's all a very standardized set of hardware. And all of my virtual machines have that same set of hardware, regardless of the physical hypervisor that they're running on. What the guest operating system sees from machine to machine is very much the same. And now if I need to back up and restore to, let's say, even a different physical ESXi host, there aren't going to be any driver issues there for me. Everything is the same. I have this consistent hardware that's actually presented to the guest operating system, and it doesn't change. We can also have centralized control, and I mentioned a little bit about vCenter in the last slide. So with vCenter, I've got a centralized server that I use to manage everything, all my hosts, all my virtual machines, all of my resource management. It's all done in my centralized system called vCenter. And from a compliance perspective, there are tools that VMware has to allow you to manage compliance effectively. One of the tools that I'll mention here is vCenter Configuration Manager that we can use to basically create a standard configuration that can be used as a reference. And we can check for compliance issues and resolve those. But there are other tools as well. When we think about compliance, we can think about things like templates, right? So if I have a template, it's an image of a virtual machine that I can deploy all of my new virtual machines from this template. So if I get all of my settings in compliance on my template, then every virtual machine that I create based on that template will also be in compliance. And there's some additional tools like host profiles and things like that if you want to kind of take it to the next level. But in the end, compliance is one of the challenges that vSphere can help us